Hello there, Meow Mentors. It's Cat Lady Justin, and I'm back with another episode of Catching Up with Dr. Rachel Geller. Remember, this is the show where we teach you how to pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. And so, one of the lovely things we do is we meet some really awesome people. You've met some awesome people in the last few weeks, that's for sure. And today is our monthly catch up with the cat behaviorist and cat chaplain, Dr. Rachel Geller. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring her on. Dr. Rachel, welcome to the show again. Thank you for being here. It's always great to see you.
Nice to see you too, Justin. And I always love being a guest on your show. It's so much fun and
Well, we
informative.
Oh, well, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's educational and enlightening and entertaining at the same time. So
Yes.
hopefully, I mean, that's at least what we go for because there's no sense in being stressed about these animals that are supposed to de-stress us. Because all those university studies that show that the purring vibrates at a frequency that lowers cortisol level and reduces stress. So if we're going to stress out about cats, we're kind of defeating the whole purpose of that creature. I have to wonder what maybe that is the purpose of the cat because I don't know of another animal that does this thing vibrates and then all of a sudden heals you of stress. I don't know of another animal or insect or anything on earth that does that. So who knows? I think they are something special and magical in that way.
Yes, cats are special and magical, and we love them dearly.
So today is September. Today is my mom's birthday. So I don't
Oh,
know if she's going to listen to this or what, but if just in case, happy birthday. Or my mother's French, so joyeux anniversaire, maman.
happy
But yeah, I
birthday.
sent her flowers, and she has a cat, so I made sure it was strictly cat safe flowers, no lilies in there or anything. But yeah, so it is September, and there's a few things that come in mind with September. So of course, at the end of the month, we're going to enter the autumn or the fall season. So we can talk about a few things around that. But then there's also back to school. So there are some issues around that. Now I don't have any children, but I do remember when I was a kid and when I was growing up and back to school and all that. And I used to I spent all day with the cat at home, and then all of a sudden I'm not. So it is perhaps something to be interested in addition to all the supplies and the various things that go along with being in school. And my dad, when he was in medical school, he had a cat that used to sit on top of his desk in front of the book, and my dad would be studying, and my dad would just have to look up, and the cat would turn the page for him. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. I like
Uh,
that story.
so yeah, so there's all those issues that happened. But first of all, I did have, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but I did have a question that I'd like to discuss with you. You might tell me, I don't know, but because wearing your cat chaplain hat, and that is because this week is suicide prevention week. It's all week until tomorrow. Actually, it was the 4th through the 10th. So it got me to wondering: is actually, do cats ever commit suicide? Like, one person commented and said, gave an example that potentially could be a cat looking to end its own life by lying purposely in the road to get run over. But because he would never do that before until he started having issues and getting, old and sick and decrepit. So it's an interesting question because I actually don't know the answer to that. And so we might not arrive at an answer, but it's just, I thought I'd ask you as the cat chaplain, what you think about that. Is do cats commit suicide?
That is such a fascinating question. And I did see you post that. And it's interesting because I was thinking, I don't know if cats commit suicide the way we think about it. But I do know that when cats realize that they're dying and they realize that they're very ill and vulnerable, they will, if it's an outdoor cat, the cat will walk away someplace and hide where she can't get any food and nobody can help her and let herself die. And if you have an indoor cat, they do something similar. Indoor cats, when they know that they're dying, they know they don't feel well, they know the end is near, they will go and hide someplace in the house where they think you may not be able to find them. So I don't know if it's not like they will kill themselves in some maybe sudden way, the way humans do, but they will, when they're not feeling well, they can tell they're dying, they will shut down, they will withdraw, and they'll go hide someplace. They don't want to be fed anymore. They don't want to look for food anymore. They know that their life is over. And so they go somewhere quiet, dark, comfortable, hidden, where where they can pass away on their own. So that is kind of an interesting thought, because I know many times for indoor cats, people will need to euthanize their cats to end the suffering, and which is such a gift to a cat who knows that she is dying. But if there's not, a human in the home, or their stray cats or their colony cats, or for whatever reason, I know some people just don't feel ready to make that decision and euthanize their cats as well. But the cat certainly does make an effort, to kind of let herself go, to let herself die. So it is kind of an interesting concept, and cats are very, very astute and tuned into that, themselves within that dying process. So when they know that death is, knocking on the door, so to speak, they will shut down and kind of stop engaging in any activities that would keep them healthy. They will stop eating, they will stop drinking, and they'll hide.
Oh, that's really fascinating because I knew about the whole hiding thing, but linking that potentially to a type of suicidal behavior, maybe an unhonorable one, is something I'd not heard before. So that is very, very interesting. So before we move on to the topic about September, school, fall, and all that, I thought it'd be interesting, well, not necessarily interesting, but appropriate to acknowledge that even though probably most people will be listening to this in a future time period, so maybe next year, or maybe they won't be listening it today live, and so it's not necessarily going to be relevant to them when they hear this or when they see it later. But today is September the 9th, 2022. And the Queen of England, Her Majesty the Queen, Queen Elizabeth, she passed away yesterday. And so it's appropriate, I think, to acknowledge that and to just say that we're recording it in a very difficult and challenging time and sad time for the UK. Of course, King Charles has now, the third, has now taken over, and I think will officially go through all the stuff on Thursday, and I think it's coming up, it's imminent, and all of that. And it's especially appropriate to acknowledge someone like the Queen because she's well beloved around the world. Although I do know that there are her detractors. I've seen them. I've got friends who don't like her, and that's fine. I'm not here to promote the monarchy or neither to detract from it. But we do need to acknowledge, of course, that she was a great animal lover. So she loved her horses, and as while she could and was physically able to, she rode horses up until very late in life. She was also a lover of dogs and always kept a bunch of what are now famous corgi breed dogs around the house. And most people don't know that she didn't dislike cats. She liked cats. In fact, I shared a picture on my social media of a young Queen Elizabeth with a cat. And I believe she was on board a ship, and the cat was not hers; it was the ship's. But you could tell that she loved the cat. She liked the cat. She was not like ick. She really liked the cat. And no, I did not take that picture because I'm not that old to have photographed a young Queen Elizabeth. She was well before my time. But so it's appropriate to acknowledge someone who was a great supporter and lover of animals, cats included. So I just wanted to say that because I think it's appropriate to acknowledge today, even though, again, most people uh, will not be it won't be relevant because they'll be listening to this in the future.
Yeah.
But as we're talking now about bereavement and suicide, we have a Facebook user who apologizes. I don't know who you are because that's all that the information I'm getting. Unless you click that link for that, is that I had to do that once a couple years ago, broke my heart, and I'm sure this person. Thank you for sharing that. Is referring to having had to euthanize the cat, which is of course I can't honestly imagine that. It's something I hope I'll have the strength and courage to do if I need to make that decision, but I honestly can't guarantee it. It is a hugely tough thing to do. So I don't judge anyone who is not up to it. And then Roberta, who's a great friend of ours, who's always very supportive. Hi, peeps. I can't stay on long, but we'll watch it later. Wonderful, wonderful, Roberta. Thank you so much for that. So if we don't hear more from you, I'll know why. But it'll be great
Thank
to for you to listen or watch later. And of course, you're always welcome to leave your comments or questions for us at any time. It doesn't have to be at a specific time. So let's go from those transitions then to talk about what's really relevant for this episode, which is September, the autumn and the fall. So let's start with, because at the end of the month, it's going to be the autumn, the beginning of autumn, and at least where we are. So I understand that in the other hemisphere of the world, it's the opposite season. But we're going to catch up about this because if you're listening to it and it's not the autumn, well, it will be at some point. So what kind of things should we watch out for? Should we look for in the autumn as the leaves start to fall, the temperatures start to get a little bit lower, might be some more rain. So what kind of things should we watch out for?
So as we go through that transition, from
Oops.
the world, and so we're leaving the heat, we're leaving the humidity, we're leaving all the um, many people leave their AC on or their windows open. So there's going to be a lot of changes, right? There's going to be a difference in the airflow. There's going to be a difference in the temperature. There'll be a difference in the amount of light in the day. So all kinds of things are going on as we transition from summer to fall. And so one thing I always want people to make sure is that they really have a warm, comfy, cozy place for their cat to snuggle into, because particularly indoor cats where the temperature is not, there's not always a big temperature difference between summer and fall for many cats who maybe live indoors in the climate control. But these cats do, because their fur may not always be as grown in as outdoor cats. So when they are inside, even though the house is heated or the temperature is pleasant for us, your cat may start to feel a little bit chilly. So one of the things I really like to make sure people have is warm, comfy cat beds, even self-reflecting heated cat beds, so the bed reflects the cat's heat back onto the cat, keeping the cat nice and warm. Cats really do like to be warm and cozy. They tend to want a little more heat than we do. So as the temperature is transitioning from, the hot to the more cool, really make sure you have cozy places for your cat to, cuddle up and feel comfortable. On that same vein, if you have the type of radiator where a cat can lay on top, maybe move things away so the cat can access that area. Behind me in this video right now, you can see I have a radiator. And what I do as the temperature starts to cool, on that bottom shelf there, I move my little chutkeys away from each other. So there's a nice space for my cat to sit down and enjoy the heat and lie on the heat. So, think about radiators, making sure they have some access, if they're a steam radiator, make sure you have heated cat beds for your cat. And last, be very, very careful with heat space heaters, because even though cats are very good at being able to tolerate when the heat gets to be too much, so I'm not really worried as much about the cat being close to the space heater and getting hurt. I'm more worried about the cat walking by and perhaps toppling over the space heater, and that could be a danger for, clearly, your cat or anybody who's in the home or apartment at the time. So if you do want to use a space heater to create some warmth for your cat, try to put it in a place where it's safe, it's out of the way, and I really wouldn't leave it unattended, because there are some potential worries with that, either tipping over or the cords causing the cat to get caught on the cord and then tipping the heater over as well. So always try to think of safety for your cat. It seems like it's so much, but it's kind of like the basic things that we might do for a toddler or a young child, or even a human that may need some type of an adaptive environment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is a good point, and, somebody just came to join to join and say hello. Hi,
Hello,
Emily.
sweetie.
Charlotte was the birthday girl this week on the 2nd of April, but, Emily just came to say hello and see her now. It's off camera, but she's on my lap now. So when it comes to the space heaters, though, I get what you're saying with the danger of being more, like a clumsy cat, for example, like my Charlotte, who would totally knock it over. But there's something else that I think comes to mind when it comes to these devices for the environment, and that is, depending on where you are in the world, a humidifier or a dehumidifier. Because in some places, once you start switching the radiators on, it gets really dry, and in other places, it's a really moist climate, like here, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do really use dehumidifiers quite a lot. So, what would you suggest around those two devices, perhaps?
So, kind of basically the same idea. I mean, it's true there are climates that are very, very dry, and there are climates that are more tropical. So, and I do feel like space heaters really help so many people to stay comfortable without breaking the budget, with the heat on. And the same, with humidifiers and dehumidifiers. And people who have allergies or seasonal allergies obviously really benefit from those types of items. But I think the main thing for your cat is your cat's probably not going to get hurt if he touches the humidifier or the dehumidifier. And I feel like those types of machines are pretty heavy. They're much more heavy than
Mm,
the space heater. So it may not be as much of a concern. And I know you got people are going to want to run those a lot during the day. If you are worried, um, there are so many products out there for to deter a cat from an area, and they're very, very helpful. So if you are worried about your cat with a humidifier, a dehumidifier, a space heater, etc., one very simple thing to do is, and you can find these on any Google search, is spray some type of a cat deterrent in that area. Maybe around the periphery of whichever climate control item you have, whether it's humidifier, dehumidifier, or
yeah,
space heater. So, they come in all different varieties. You spray them at something yucky that the cat doesn't like, spray it around the periphery. They're completely safe. And that kind of keeps the cat, a few feet away at all times from whatever that
yeah.
item is. So that's kind of an easy way to provide some safety, because the cat won't proceed once they, pick up that scent of, and they come in all
Yeah.
different things, as like bitter apple and citrus.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So,
I have
yeah,
one to
yeah,
be honest.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I've seen those things. You just have to search them on Amazon or Google, and I'm sure you'll
exactly.
find a
Yeah,
decent natural one. They're all over the
yes.
place. Just don't overuse it, obviously. We have a very interesting question that just came up from one of our viewers and listeners. Again, I apologize. All the information I'm receiving now is Facebook user. I think you have to click on this link that allows you to reveal who you are to us. So you're more than welcome to stay anonymous or to tell me who you are. But the question is, I have one CH kitty and filled out an application to adopt another one. Oh, Jennifer. Oh, yes, I know who you are. Hi, Jennifer. So far, my first one is mild to moderate and is very independent and self sufficient. Is there anything that CH kitties are prone to? So I I know which cat she's talking about, and I apologize. I no longer remember what the acronym CH stands for, but I do know what it is. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. I know it's the cat that is a little bit
Yes.
wobbly and
Yeah.
has those kinesthetic and wobbly issues. I just don't remember what that stands for. So if you do, Dr. Rachel, let us know.
Yes. So that's cerebellar hyperplasia, and basically people call it wobbly cats, as
Yeah,
kind of a easy way to explain what your cat may have, because obviously that big scientific nomenclature doesn't work for everybody. And that, when you're talking in the general vernacular, it's easy just to say that you have a wobbly cat. So, it's interesting because many CH cats are very independent. They learn to adapt with that ailment, and they get along just fine in life. It is pretty fascinating, really. The main thing for CH cats is that is a cat who, is just, you said before, could be a little clumsy. They can't always control their movements, and they can be a little or very herky jerky. So, you really want to make sure they're not going to be anywhere next to something that could tip over and cause a danger. And I feel like, even if a humidifier fell over, right? Like, what's the worst going to happen? You'll have some water. But I always worry about space heaters, because if they tip over, you're talking about perhaps a fire. So, if you do have a CH cat and you are someone who needs a space heater in your home or apartment just because it's old, it's drafty, whatever the reason is, I would just make sure it's always attended when it's on. The other thing with CH cats is you always want to make sure that their food and their water and litter box is very, very accessible at all times, because it can be a little difficult for them to get to the litter box on time. So we don't want to have any accidents. And low-sided litter boxes are really great for CH cats as well. But my experience really with CH cats is that they really just, I don't think they realize that anything is different. That's just how they are. And they really do a terrific job of going through their life just fine. One other thing I'm thinking as I'm talking that would probably help the CH cat too is an elevated food bowl, or even those types of bowls that are elevated and angled. They're probably a little bit easier for that cat to eat and drink out of too.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's so if you have a wobbly cat, just remember some of those tips that are very important to remember. And it's interesting that you say that they're. And anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to Jennifer for that really really interesting question. So thank you very much. The so what comes up for me is that it's very similar to some, but not all humans. When they have something, some of them can be extremely independent, as if this is just how I live, and
Yes.
I'm just I don't know anything else or any better. Of course, humans are also very good at other ways of interacting with their environment, other than being independent. But I don't want to go into some kind of thing that'll end up misconstrued, and then I'll be accused of whatever. My point being is that there's a lot of people like that too, who just
Yeah.
they don't know life in another way, and so
Yeah.
they just feel this is normal, and so they cope in a terrific way. Okay, so we have a human who says I am wobbly too. Okay, which it makes perfect sense why you would be the perfect host or the perfect mom for such a cat, because you know what that's like, and so it's
Right.
wonderful. So I don't know. You're probably one of those humans that falls into the category of being independent. I mean, from what I know of you, you're a very independent person. And so I think that's a really interesting thing. I did have earlier on a little comment which I wanted to express appreciation for, is that Roberta, our friend who couldn't stay, actually said that she's sharing. So
Oh, great.
Roberta, when you do listen to this, thank you very much. That's always good, and I'd like to encourage everyone to share. And if even if you don't share this immediate live right now, to definitely share this podcast, share this episode, and hopefully get more people on board as meow mentors to help our feline friends. So that's cool. So thank you very much. Of course, if there's any more questions, we'd love to answer them, or comments. So we talked about the fall issues, right? And the thing I was thinking about more with the humidifier, dehumidifier, is the change in the atmospheric pressure. So I wouldn't want to like dehydrate my cat, you know, not that it would be like, turn into like cat jerky, but I mean like to dehydrate it and then have possible health problems because it's dehydrated unnaturally because of the dehumidifier. That's kind of what I was thinking about more. But I suppose if you leave enough water bowls and fountains out,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
cat'll pretty much take care of itself.
They will, leave out those water bowls. One thing I think is helpful, and I'm glad you actually brought this up about the dehumidifier, is, many times we have like maybe one or two feeding stations. But I do suggest to people where they are using a dehumidifier, or the air is very dry, to place more than just one or two water bowls around the house. Because sometimes when cats get that lethargic feeling, getting dehydrated, they don't feel good. I know it sounds a little silly, but sometimes they get into a cycle and they really don't want to have to go on a journey to get to their water bowl.
Mm,
So it's not a bad idea if your cat isn't drinking the same amount, or you notice, you can tell the cat's a little more lethargic or not quite as bouncy as usual. Try, and you're using a dehumidifier, or you're in a dry area. I would suggest putting more water bowls about your home or apartment, just so to make it easy, accessible. Because cats, they're so small, their metabolisms are so much quicker than ours. So once one part of their, body or being or organ start to feel a little grumpy, it's very easy for that to start spreading throughout the cat very quickly. So just make sure, in those dry temps, or if you are using a dehumidifier, have several bowls out all around the house.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just have a few extra bowls
Yeah.
and the cat will be okay.
Yes.
So, let's move on to now the other thing that comes up in September in most, parts of the world that I'm familiar with at least, which is back to school. So, I mean, again, I don't have kids, so it's not an issue for me, but I remember when I was a kid. And I'm sure that a lot of the people listening, or watching do have kids. And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe you have grandkids, or maybe you have friends who have kids. So what should we be aware of in terms of different emotional states, like the companion or the kid is now no longer here all day long, or potentially also school supplies that are now being brought home, whether that's a protractor for doing math, or whether it's books, or a knapsack, backpack, rucksack, whatever you want to call it for whatever country you're in. So, what kind of things should we be really aware of in this back to school, other than perhaps a stowaway of a kitten ending up in your backpack, and then their kitten is at school with you?
So there's two answers to your pieces of your question. So first, I want to talk a little bit about separation anxiety, because that is a real thing in cats. And second, a little bit about safety, with those school supplies. So separation anxiety first. Clearly, if your kid has been home for a lot of the summer and has spent more time interacting with that cat, maybe you gave your child some responsibilities around feeding or brushing or litter box cleaning. Or, maybe you just have kids who were around for the entire summer, that you were doing staycation things and maybe short day trips. They were home all summer long. So that's going to be a huge change in that cat's life when those kids go back to school, and those hours from, approximately 8 to 3, all of a sudden the cat has lost that attention and that fun and that companionship. Now, chances are the adults in the family, their schedule may not be that different, but all of a sudden the kids who were there all day are now not there at all. So I always say to people, prepare your cat for separation anxiety. So when that school date is coming up. So the time to prepare is, a few weeks before that. So start taking, trips outside of your home a little bit more. Maybe bring the kids with you on errands that you may not necessarily bring them with you for certain things, going to the grocery stores or picking up a prescription or whatever. So start getting those kids out of the house more. So when school starts, you're not going from like total companionship, always being around, to you're now gone for most of the day. So some cats will really suffer through separation anxiety. This is the time that you want to make sure you're really beefing up your interactive play sessions. You're providing your cat with all types of stimulation, such as puzzle feeders. A cat who is busy is a cat who's not focusing on her own anxiety. So all types of things to keep your cat busy and engaged will go a long way from preventing um,
Mhm.
separation anxiety. Now, for the safety issue, there's so many things that I always worry about with back to school. Staples, things that can fall on the floor that aren't good for a cat to play with. Paper clips, glue, all those kinds of things. Be really careful that when you're doing your project or you're doing your homework, you are doing it in an area that's safe for your cat, an area where you're attending to your cat and make sure the cat's not getting into anything, and never leave things like rubber bands, staples, glue, paper clips, anything that a cat can easily play with and possibly get into her mouth can be a big problem.
Those are really good points to bring up, and good points to bring up for anyone who is a parent, because your kids might not be paying attention. And so if you're a parent, make sure you really do that. Or you know what? If you're a kid and you're listening to this, be mindful of those things. You can also be responsible. You don't have to be a grown up or an adult to do that. So if you happen to be listening, because our podcast is, of course, uh, you know, safe for children. So you don't have to be over 18 or something to listen to this. We don't curse except for the occasional slip up, which I apologize for, and we don't talk vulgar things either. So we're totally cool with that. So if you are a kid and you're listening to this, hey, you can help out. You can make sure that you don't leave little bits and pieces that your cat could get injured with or swallow by accident, or they shouldn't really play with, and so that would be very helpful.
Yes.
And if you're a parent, it is ultimately your responsibility because you are the grown up. So I think that's a really, really excellent thing to be mindful of. And then when it comes to the separation thing, we really do need to acknowledge that also. Not only is the cat might be a little bit anxious or feeling sad about the separation, but what about us? I mean, I know this might sound pathetic, and if you want to judge me, but I exit the house and I might be just going to the grocery store. I might be gone for a half hour, right? Or 30 or an hour. I lock the door and I go, and as I see Charlotte or Emily in the bay window, I miss them already. I haven't been gone for more than 10 seconds and I already miss my cats. And as they start to pat the window and I play with them and all that, I'm like, you know, once in a while late for stuff because of that. And
Oh, yes.
so I
Yes.
think while everybody might not be quite as pathetic as I am, I there must be some level of emotional connection and
Yeah.
some level of I wish I was at home with my cat right now for the kid who's at school or for the mom who's at school or whatever.
Yes.
So, what would you suggest around that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. When I go on vacation or whatever, I really miss my cats. Um, they are just in my heart so much. And I think probably a lot of people, this is a great audience for you, Justin, and for me as well, because I'm sure this audience is not going to judge us on our unhealthy attachment to our cats. And I say that with love. So yeah, I mean, make sure that your child is going to have, build that into the home schedule. Make that part of the kid's life. Just like you might have the time blocked off for the soccer practice or the time blocked off for the band practice. Make a structured time in that schedule that's going to be that child's time to play with the cat, to be with the cat. So if the kid is very busy, you're going to have this in their schedule. But the other thing is that if your child has other time he can play with the cat, he can play with the cat whenever he wants. But by having it in the schedule, you're guaranteeing, as much as possible that your kid is going to get time with that cat. And the other thing you can do is give your child some responsibilities. Depending on the age, certainly your cat could, put out the food or refill the water bowl or set out the scratching post, whatever. Make sure your kids still maintain that connection, that bond, even when they are at school. And I see that somebody wrote about their cat getting
Yeah.
mad at them. That is separate. So many people don't realize or don't believe that cats are very dependent on us. They think, oh, cats are aloof, they're independent, they can fend for themselves. It is not true. Cats form very, very strong bonds with us, and cats absolutely get upset when we leave because they don't understand the whole thing. The best thing to do, for the person who's, saying that the cat is getting mad at her. So the cat's not necessarily mad. The cat was scared, the cat was
Mhm.
worried. We can't explain to the cat that we're going to be back. So, really, really engage in that interactive play therapy, because not only is a very powerful tool to create or to reinforce the cat human bond, but it's a wonderful way for the cat to release tension. And when the cat gets that final capture in food, that cat now feels, like a brave conqueror and a successful hunter. And all these positive associations of good feelings are being associated with you and with your home. And this will really go a long way to, repairing that relationship after your cat was a little upset and going through the separation anxiety.
Yeah, and this is a good time to bring up as we start to slowly wind down is that Dr. Rachel is now talking about, of course, her wheelhouse, her thing that she's particularly expertise in. So I've put it up on the screen right now. If you do need any help with your cat's behavior, and especially if you're considering surrendering your cat, that means abandoning it, just to call a spade, just to call it as it is. But the more polite and kind term is surrender the cat. So if you're considering that, before you do, go to www.drrachelcatbehavior.com and book a session with Dr. Rachel. It's free because she's on a mission to help 1,000 cats a year to stay in their homes, and that's because they have loving relationships. So if you do have a problem cat, then by all means reach out to Dr. Rachel Geller at DrRachelCatBehavior.com. I spelled it because most people will probably be listening and not watching, so they can't see the thing on the screen. But just be aware that there is a resource out there that is free, that is affordable, and that I highly endorse and recommend. And definitely, because it's free, there's no more excuses now. So if you go and you surrender that cat to the shelter because it's a problem for you, that's because you just are too lazy. Because it's not gonna cost you any money to go to that website and have a consultation with Rachel. And heck, you have nothing to lose. It costs you zero. And worst case scenario, she can't help you, and you do surrender the cat. But chances are very, very good that she can help you with a strategy to help turn that cat's behavior around and have that relationship that you want with the cat. So I
Yes,
wanted to
yes,
make sure that we
separate.
get that across
I'm
now
glad.
as we
Yeah,
started to talk really deeply about behavior and separation and those kind of
yeah.
issues.
Separation anxiety is a real thing in cats. That's something I really want to emphasize, because there is that myth that cats are independent creatures. They are independent hunters, but they are not independent creatures. They they are attached to us. They want us in their lives. They are sentient beings with, emotions and feelings. And so absolutely, when there's a major change and it involves the cat being left alone more than she was used to, or people moving out of the house, people going to school, people going back to work, really make sure that you provide that cat with things that will keep her busy, that will provide her with stimulating opportunities to release tension, and that will definitely help with the separation anxiety.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. So, and the other thing we talked about really quickly is that because I alluded to it about the price and that your services don't cost anything, and that also goes for other things, including some supplies or resources that somebody might need. And if they are on low income, for whatever reason it is, you also have a solution for that, which they can find through your website called
Yeah.
A Cat or All Cats All the Time, right? And that is a nonprofit that you set up for the purpose of helping people who are on low income to really properly take care of their cats, to
Yes.
protect their pets properly for that lifetime of unconditional love. So if you're struggling right now, again, we have no more excuses left. It's not about the money because it doesn't cost anything. And if you need some resources, there's a nonprofit set up for you to do that. Now, it's called All Cats All the Time, and you find it through Dr. Rachel's main website, Dr. Rachel Cat Behavior. So, again, highly endorse and recommend all of these initiatives, all of these projects. And so we really, really want to keep cats in their home. As you know, my little private secret mission, my secret ambition or dream with this whole, kitty boss movement is to get 1 million more cats adopted. And I know it's a big thing, and I know most people might roll their eyes and think it's not doable. But do you know what? There are enough cats out there who need a home, and there are enough lonely people out there who need a cat that it should be easy to do that. So, especially if we remove the excuses of time and money, because
Yeah.
if we can show people that it can be easy to have a cat, to own a cat, then we can really, really do that. And so I don't think 1 million is that ambitious, but it might sound like it. But there's a ton of lonely people out there. And if you think, oh, yeah, but maybe there's not that many cat people out there, nope, because there are more cat people out there than there are dog people out there. It's just that there's a lot of closet cat people out there. And that's the truth because cats are the number one companion animal, both in the United States and the United Kingdom. Number one, even though you see so much more dog products and stuff and out there, cats are number one. And the reason for that is a lot of cat people are, in the closet about their love of cats. So anyway, that's my little soapbox tirade for this about cat ownership, cat surrendering, and also plugging your services and of course I don't make any money off of it because neither does Dr. Rachel. It is what we're on a mission here because we love people, but we love cats even more. And
We
that's
really
uh
do.
and that's the bottom line
We
because
really do.
Cat
Yes.
Lady Justin said so. So
Yeah, I
anybody
mean
who catches that reference, message me if you know what I'm who I've stolen that line from. Make sure you tell me because that's because we'll get along really well. So now we have our friend again saying, "I have a good question for you." Okay, well
okay,
we have a few minutes left,
okay.
so fire away. We are waiting to hear the question. So as soon as you have it for us, we can answer it. But be aware that we need that question now because we're only a few minutes away from showtime, where we need to call it a day or a night if you're here in the UK with me. And I gotta feed my cats. So
And if you can't get the question off right away, like Justin said, go to my website. I'm happy to answer that question at a
yeah,
later
yeah. And
time.
you can always post it for us.
Yeah.
We'll see it that way too. Ah, okay. This is interesting. Wait, how do you stop people from adopting cats? Now that's an interesting question because first of all, why would we want to do that? But secondly, perhaps you mean people who are just inappropriate cat parents, perhaps abusers and people like that. I definitely don't want somebody to abuse a cat,
Right.
um, and that is not right. So I'm assuming that's what you mean. But here we go. Clarification: they adopted at least 10 this year and then surrendered.
Oh,
Now there's something definitely
yeah.
wrong with that. With
So
that.
I will
Uh,
say that most shelters that I work with, and not every shelter, but this is a movement that is progressing. So most shelters that I work with will do a background check, they'll do a vet check, they'll ask for references, and some shelters even do site visits. So a way to prevent, you know, someone from adopting who is, as you said, I mean, that's too many cats unless they actually live in a shelter. But,
No, but they surrendered them, so they're like serial. They're
they're
like
just
they're like they're
adopting
like
and then
whores. They
surrendering.
like
Yeah,
went from one to another. I mean, that's
yeah.
terrible.
And people do that with kittens a lot. The kittens grow up and then they really didn't want a cat. They like the playful kitten. The kitten was cuter. Maybe the cats had medical issues. They surrender. So, typically, like I said, shelters ask for references. They ask for vet references. Like I think that a lot of shelters would would check with the vet, would check with references. Now, some shelters don't do that. there, in addition to the reference checks and the background checks and so forth, there are more and more communities and shelters maintaining what's called a do not adopt list. So I know in Massachusetts, where I'm broadcasting for right now, we have a statewide DNA list, do not adopt. So anyone can go on that list and let the other, shelters and rescue organizations know that this person is just adopts the cats and returns them. So the main thing is communication really within that cat community. How can we be aware of these people who are adopting cats and putting them on Craigslist, or adopting cats and then once they've grown into adult cats, we don't want them anymore. So I think this is something that I'm hoping more and more organizations, areas will do, is maintaining a DNA or do not adopt list. If you are aware of this going on, many places also have abuse hotlines that you can call or report to. You will be kept anonymous. So if there is a rescue in your area that has a hotline or report abuse line, I would not hesitate to call them right now, because clearly that's abuse. And so many shelters don't communicate with each other just because there isn't always, that resource. And there isn't like worldwide or even, countrywide, some type of um, list that's shared. But many states have their own lists. And I would definitely report that in your area, if you have a legal law enforcement officer for cats, or most shelters do have a hotline for abuse. So that might be the route you want to take.
Yeah, so just think about that, because obviously you say this one keeps giving them cats. Obviously, this particular shelter isn't policing it or monitoring it closely. So you
Right,
might want to see if you can find someone there, for example, who runs it or is in charge, and let them know that this is
right.
happening, or let them know in an even gentler way. Let them know that there are these initiatives, these schemes, these particular things that other shelters do. For example, the do not adopt lists
Mhm.
and other things that maybe not in your state, but in other states, these are very active, and really, really responsible shelters will monitor that and do that. So maybe encourage them that way, or just try one of those things, because I certainly can think of other things, but they're not necessarily legal, so you don't want to do that.
No.
But it's that kind of thing still baffles me, by the way, because I remember Emily and Charlotte when they were kittens, and they were great. I mean, I loved it. It was adorable, and I love kittens. But you know what? When you pick the right cat, the practically perfect pussy cat for you, when you then pamper your pet so you imprint on each other and you develop that relationship, and then you do what we do, which is protect your pet properly for a lifetime of unconditional love, that cat grows into a marvelous, loving, wonderful ball of fluff and joy. And it's like, I actually prefer my big, substantial cats, my big Emily, my big Charlotte, to when they were this little kitten the size of a tarantula. It's great to have this, lovely mass of love and light. So it baffles me that people would do such a thing. I mean, in that case, get a hamster, you
No,
know?
I don't understand either. But there could be mental illness involved. There could be factors we're not aware of. So I would
Yeah, I
really,
mean,
that would,
theoretically there could be, yeah.
right. I think the best case scenario that will be the easiest for this person calling in is to notify if their local police force has a law enforcement arm for animals. If their local police force has what's called an ACO, an animal control officer, or if there is, an SPCA or an ARL, some of those bigger organizations in your
Mhm.
area, call them right away, because they all have abuse hotlines. They all have law enforcement hotlines, and this is something that would obviously help the lives of all of these cats who are being needlessly surrendered to shelters.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's another potential thing to explore if this is a problem, and it sounds like, it's a problem. So yeah. So Jennifer says, thanks. You're obviously very welcome. Thanks for bringing this up. It's definitely not something I'd ever thought about, of people who do that to stop people from adopting. I certainly hope and believe that it is the minority of cases, that it's hopefully not so prevalent and common that we need to panic about it, other than doing some of the smart things like having the do not adopt lists, or reporting it when we do see it, because that would be a really, really sad place for the humanity if that was an actual just a very prevalent and common thing. Because, like Jennifer so rightly says here, they are your babies. They are our babies in
Yes.
many ways. And it might sound funny, it might sound weird to compare them to that, but the truth is we spend and invest all of this time with them by choice. We want to, we love them. They provide, as I said at the beginning of the show, a lot of healing to us. They provide a lot of, and not just mystical. I'm talking about like university studies that show the vibration of the purr lowers cortisol levels and lowers stress in humans. So much so that there's even been recordings done based on the purr and the frequency of the purr and set to music that is very calming for humans and for cats. And I believe it's called ambiology pet waves. And they have a cat one and a dog one. And so the
Interesting.
cat one I have and I use, and it's wonderful. You can look it up. You get it on iTunes. It's ambiology pet waves. And I do play it for me and for the cats, and it's a wonderful thing. And there's even a website called purr.ly where you can, it purrs, and you can adjust the purring and everything to make it brighter or this or that. It's really a cool, thing. Very gimmicky, but it's a cool thing. But it really is there to showcase and highlight how special that is. So I appreciate everybody who made a comment today. I really appreciate everyone who asked a question today. They were really good ones, and I hope next month we get a chance to, for more. And of course, Dr. Rachel, I really appreciate your time and attention today. It was really awesome to talk about all of these things around the fall, the autumn, back to school, and to share all of these things around that. Of course, as well as the particular week that we're recording this, which was the Suicide Prevention Week, and to talk about how that's relevant to cats. And the one thing we didn't talk about, of course, is what happens when somebody, a human, ends up committing suicide, but there's a pet left over. We will leave that for perhaps another time,
That's a great.
because
I have a lot of info on that. So let's leave that for the next one, or yes. Yeah.
yeah, we can talk about that at the next one. And of
Yes.
course, both of us know some bereavement specialists and all of that. So we can leave that for the next time. But for now, thank you everybody for joining us on the Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. This is Cat Lady Justin. Thank you for joining us.